Taking place roughly 3 months after the events of Vernal Winds, here A People Sows tells the story of mankind's continuous battle against the greatest bane of man, hunger. The endless struggle to feed not just oneself, but an entire nation. It's an endless battle. War, famine, the weather, natural disasters, all challenges to be overcome just to ensure food is placed on the table. And Arknights obviously has to take these challenges up to 11 because the struggle to feed the most populous nation on Terra isn't enough to set the groundworks for an event like this. The cornerstone of all civilizations is the food that feeds it, and the topic is tackled quite interestingly during the course of this event. From a folk hero who laid the path the current generation of farmers follow, to a caring god overseeing the harvest, even down to a young noble walking the fields alongside the hard-working men and women of Dahong. This event really places effort into letting us know the pain and suffering that goes into eking out an existence on the inhospitable world of Terra. And this video is hopefully going to be giving you a rundown of it all. From the story to the lore, this event does a fantastic job of establishing the city of Dahong, its importance to Yan, and tells a compelling tale of overcoming nature's trials and living a fulfilling life. Quite a lot of interesting lore is revealed to us in this event, specifically surrounding Dahong and the long history of farming across Terra. Previously established story threads laid out in older Sui events and other stories from across Terra get some solid development here. Most striking of all is probably the continuous focus being placed onto the existential threat that is the collapsals. So let us just run through some of my highlights. One of the biggest background components of this event is the character of Shenong, a mythical figure of Dahong. Despite being a simple farmer, her story was passed down for 1,000 years, transforming her into this divine figure. Many of the feats of Shu have been credited to her, so it's no surprise that she's garnered this reputation. A godlike being who returns to Dahong every year on the anniversary of the festival celebrating her passing. At the core of the myth is the human herself though, a hard-working farmer striving to overcome the disasters present on Terra and build a stable life, not just for her, but all of Yan. During her time working to achieve this dream, Shu would come into her life. The fragment of a god would no doubt be an incredible boon, but despite Shu having the power to feed all those who lived around Shenong, she rejected humanity relying on the power of a god. Instead, she taught a god the methods of human farming, and as a result taught Shu what it means to be mortal. Due to her efforts, Shu would take up her mantle of protecting Dahong for the next 1,000 years. But even the presence of a god could not give Shenong what she wanted. Nearing the end of her life, Shenong traveled into the north, traveling through demon-infested lands in search of a grain that was immune to Originium. And despite succeeding somewhat in returning from the north, all she brought back was a small packet of seeds. Nothing special about them at all. But Shenong was corrupted, and despite knowing better, Shu couldn't refuse to bury her friend in the land they cultivated together, dooming Dahong to demonic corruption that would seep into all of its land over the next 1,000 years. So in the game about rock cancer, the rock cancer is actually focused on for once. Not in how the infection spreads, but in a different, direct, pain-in-the-ass way. The land of Terra has been plagued by catastrophes for thousands of years, and this has obviously left its mark on the land. The invention of mobile cities mostly solved the problem of a catastrophe obliterating your settlement, but not every city on Terra is located on them. Some are protected by natural barriers like Shangshu and its mountains, and others are protected by more mystical means like Kierag with its goddess. The random mention of mobile cities might seem, random, but it plays a large role in this event. So why is that? See, most mobile cities grow all their food in artificial environments. Dahong is a little different. They grow the food of Yan in the very soil that has been cultivated since the time Shenong walked the land. As such, their crops face the same issue the humans of Terra do, Originium. Not only does Originium kill people, it prevents the growth of any and all crops, and so even a small shard of Originium infecting the land in which food grows can result in an entire harvest being lost. The long battle of the people of Dahong has been to overcome this restriction, bit by bit, hoping to find a strain of crops that can resist the Originium infection that is so widespread in Terra's land. And by event's end, hoping this goal is not wiped out, as a new resistant crop has been discovered by Wang King, although only time will tell if his efforts bear fruit. The sacrifices of Shu and the people of Dahong for the past 1,000 years has not been in vain. Ever since the Black Forest Will's a Dream event, the relevance of the demonic forces of Terra have been growing and growing, taking a very large role in Zwillingstrom im August, and now, after having been mentioned since Invitation to Wine, the demonic corruption of Yan is given a highlight in this event, and they are every bit as terrifying and relentless as before. Not only have the demons been consistently driving the people of Yan back, not even the might of a Faramut can stop their advance. Shu, for 1,000 years, sacrificed pieces of her own self to defend the population of Dahong from the corruption seeping into it. The demons inhabit the forest simply a river away from Dahong, and have for the most part been successfully held at bay by Shu. That is, of course, until a flood strikes during this event and demonic corruption begins spreading despite Shu's protection. Even though a Faramut is able to cleanse the land of this corruption, it is at the cost of their own life. And if not for the very specific circumstances surrounding her death, Shu would have been lost forever due to the ties of demonic corruption. And before we get to the story properly, it is important that we focus on the Sui themselves. The Faramut is nearing awakening, and I'd say every event we get from here will bring that event closer, as Wang's plan requires it. So sooner or later, we will be seeing the might of Sui in all its glory. Before that though, we learned something very interesting during this event. Well, it's been hinted at before, but was put into proper focus here. When one of the Sui proxies dies, their death isn't just physical. Of course, their consciousness returns to the main Sui body, but more than that, the fruits of their labor leave with them. Everything they created, be it buildings or weapons, and even the very memory of their existence, will be lost to mortals upon their death. We see it happen to Shu in this event, where she has to give up her life to purify Dahong from demonic corruption, simultaneously erasing her protection of the farmlands, as well as all the memory of her from everyone except her siblings and the Sui regulators. The specifics on how it works isn't really explained, but it's something every Sui sibling has to face at some point. But it's likely due to them being mere shadows of the true Sui. Also, we get some clear direction of Wang's ultimate goal, but we will discuss that later. Additionally, we learn the purpose of the 12 pagodas and 5 cities project started following the events of Invitation to Wine. Yan intends to construct this in order to give the Sui fragments a new heart. This would allow the Sui siblings more freedom when it comes to possibly dying, as instead of rejoining Sui itself, they will go here and be able to reform themselves without losing their consciousness to Sui. So the story. Taking place in the far north of Yan, Dahong is the breadbasket of Yan, and due to its close proximity of the northern barrier against demonic invasion, serves as one of the key locations of the 12 pagodas and 5 cities project, a great construction project headed by Nian to prepare for the revival of Sui, although will no doubt be used to aid the never-ending battle against the demons following that. Nian, Dusk, and Shu used the project as an excuse to meet up. Despite all having necessary roles to play in its construction, the siblings still don't have many opportunities to reunite, so they take some time together. The construction project has required Dahong to become a mobile city, and as such, the land that was once farmed underground has been painstakingly moved onto the mobile plates. Zuale has been sent to Dahong, arriving shortly after the events of Vernal Winds to supervise the construction process on behalf of the Sui regulators. He introduces himself to Shu after arriving, familiarizing himself with the area before being requested by Shu to aid the local farms. Zuale is placed under the supervision of Wei Sheng, aka Wanking, and learns the methods of farming in Yan. While here, he befriends Wanking's friend Grainbuds, so he's making good progress connecting to the common people. Wanking is worried about the changing state of Dahong. Not only is the change to a mobile city affecting the local population's attitude, the harvest has been terrible and the country may be facing a famine year. This combination could lead to the devastation of Dahong's production capabilities, which would be devastating for all of Yan. But the process is locked in, there is no stopping it now. But of course, the event gotta event, so stuff needs to go wrong. On the day of the annual Shenong festival, a disaster hits Dahong. An abnormal increase of originium fragments is detected in the dam water, and of course, the dam bursts. So not only is a flood ruining the crops, we got originium pollution on top of it. Everyone quickly rushes to protect their homes and farmlands, but the damage is done. Nian jumps in to repair the dam using her godly might, and Dust jumps in to save the people from the floodwater using her scrolls, minimizing casualties. The farm plates are also separated from the main mobile city in order to minimize the water damage and drain the farmlands. However, the damage of originium pollution is done. Essentially, all of the crops have been polluted, and everything that hasn't been has been collected. However, morale is at an all-time low as the repair works begin. Tensions are also high as officials wish to cut their losses and abandon the polluted farmland, which you can imagine the farmers don't take too kindly. Right after this disaster, another of the Sui siblings arrive in Da Hong, Ji. Zhuola confronts him and we learn about his unique ability, the ability to weave anything through his silk. As a well-renowned merchant, Ji has arrived in Da Hong to aid with the disaster relief. Of course, as a Sui regulator dealing with Wang's plan, this sudden appearance sets Zhuola on edge. Zhuola isn't the only one on edge, however, as Dusk immediately reaches out to him and gives him a scroll that will balance the odds between Zhuola and Ji should they come to blows. Zhuola accepts this gift, as his time in Da Hong has taught him that despite accepting the aid of a Sui fragment, breaking the rules of the Sui regulators, sometimes it is necessary to swallow one's pride in order to achieve a greater goal. Originium pollution isn't the only thing Da Hong has to worry about though. Demonic corruption has started seeping into the city. Grainbuds discovers a very ominous red piece of grain, which doesn't freak her out despite being the only surviving grain stock in the field. Instead, she keeps it as a souvenir. Very intelligent woman, this one. Fortunately for her, the old Tianxi discovers her being affected by the demonic corruption and takes the grain off of her before sending Grainbuds off to search for any other signs of corruption. During her search, Grainbuds runs into Zhuole and Wang King and she tells them about the red grain. Zhuole immediately knows what's up and sends Wang King to check the granary for corruption. Everything is corrupted, so stuff isn't looking good, and Zhuole blames Ji. Ji, however, is simply enjoying his return to Da Hong, reuniting with his sister Shu. He intends to meet with Nian and Dusk too, despite already being told not to by the Sui regulators, but Zhuole catches up to him before he can meet them, trapping Ji in the scroll Dusk gave him. Here, Zhuole interrogates him, trying to get a confession about spreading the corruption, but gets a very different answer than intended. Ji reveals the reason Shu has been forced to remain in Da Hong all this time, not just out of obligation to an old friend, but to suppress the demonic corruption in the very soil of Da Hong. The Sui fragments, in Ji's eyes, have always been used by the Yanese government to clean up their messes, and Ji wants to set his sister free, especially after they already caused the death of one of his sisters already. Shu, however, has other ideas, as unlike Ji, actually loves Da Hong and the mortals who inhabit it, so she fulfills the promise she made to Shenong 8,000 years ago and protects her home, sacrificing her life, returning to Sui in order to fully cleanse the pollution from Da Hong. But her death erases all memories of her existence, and in that moment, Ji escapes from the scroll and incapacitates Zhuole. From here, Ji travels to the 12 Pagoda's core, the fake heart of Sui, and seals Nian and Dusk inside of it before inserting corrupted rice into the core, allowing for corruption to spread across Da Hong once more. And without Shu's protection, a demonic horde of locust farming equipment begins attacking the farmers. Zhuole and Wang King rally a defense of the land, preventing fear from spreading amongst the populace. Zhuole and Wang King's efforts are not in vain, and they hold out long enough for the demonic threat to be suppressed. The old Tianxi once again comes to Grainbud's rescue after Grainbuds had been attempting to help an old demonic corrupted lumberjack. So Grainbud is fine. The old Tianxi is an ageless immortal like the deathless black snake, so she could be helping out a lot more, but I get the good intentions behind baiting Grainbuds. While all that is going on, Nian and Dusk, trapped in the fake heart of Sui, are haunted by visions of their pasts. But they persist regardless, reaffirming who they are and breaking free to give Ji a beating. She was also having a bit of self-reflection. Floating in the void, she gets to meet with Sui, or at least the fragment of Sui she represents. However, she does not return to Sui just yet. The memories she made in Da Hong allow her to retain her sense of self, and she resists becoming part of it again. This enlightenment allows her to return to the mortal world again and aid in cleansing the demonic corruption from Da Hong. Well, that and the fake sweetheart get shut down, so the people are saved. Ji still has to be dealt with, however, and he has been very busy finalizing his masterpiece, a robe depicting the very country of Yan. Nian and Dusk, of course, immediately try to jump him, but are unable to get the upper hand, despite Nian using some of her plot-driven firecrackers. Shu returns at this moment, however, trapping all of them inside her realm and immediately recognizing that Ji must be getting help. So Wang finally reveals himself, and we get to see this evil Sui sibling. He invites Shu to join his crusade against Yan by revealing to her, Nina, and Dusk his true intention: to become the new Sui, intending to use this power to ensure the siblings' survival, Yan's prosperity, and revive their lost sister Ji. But of course, Wang intends to destroy the current rulers of Yan, regardless of the consequences that would have. So Shu rejects his proposal. The old Tianqi barges in at this point, intending to put a stop to Wang, but Wang and Ji simply say, "Nah, I'm good," and leave. Shu might have returned to life, but memories of her did not. But before she leaves the city, she discovers that Wang King has uncovered an originium-resistant plant, so some hope remains for Shennong's dream, and Shu can leave Da Hong in the capable hands of those she has trained. Zhuo also gets his old job back, cause they're going to need him now in Yan's capital in order to prepare for Wang's next move. The Grand Tutor, who has not appeared until now, no, there's no time to explain him, he's not that important, he's just like the second most powerful individual of Yan, discovers that another of the most important men in Yan, the Grand Commandant, has been attempting to solve the firmament problem himself. He does this by not only aiding Wang in escaping captivity, but by aiding the Shanghai Zong who attacked Yumen in Vernal Winds. So Yan has some cleaning up to do in regards to its leaders. Wang is also pretty solidly set up for his final move. He just awaits the right moment to launch the final step of his plan, which I'm sure will come eventually in a few Sui sibling events. We need to milk the dragons for all their world right now. And that rounds out Hero People Soul's story. So we're just going to have a quick discussion now on the characters that made this such an enjoyable event for me. Starting off with our little snack boy, Zhuo. He is of course a returning character and one that I was rather ambivalent on before this event. No hate for him or anything, I just never got the appeal. This event most certainly changed that. Sent from Yumen following the events of Vernal Winds, Zhuo is forced into the countryside of Dahang to oversee Shu. Not really though, as he is kind of being punished for his failings in Yumen, being sent to oversee the most reliable and unproblematic Sui fragment. But Shu recognizes his plight and knows exactly what he needs. And so, during his tenure of about 3 months within Dahong, Zhuo walked the field alongside the farmers. And it's not like some anime where his time training in the fields has actually prepared him physically for battling the Sui siblings. He might have gotten a little stronger from the farming and personal training, but he's not going to have game-changing levels of strength yet. He has, however, been able to gain a greater perspective of Yan, the proud noble who was set on his work as a Sui regulator after being forced to walk the fields, learns much-needed humility, accepting the aid of Dusk against regulator rules in order to gain advantage over Ji, and putting aside the immediate goal of capturing him in order to aid the people of Dahang in defending the crops and the farmland that they have been cultivating. And by the end of the event, he is even reinstated in his position as chief overseer of the Sui siblings and sent to Rhodes Island to gain an understanding of the company that has attracted so many of them. So Zhuo is set up quite nicely going into the future. Wang King is a Tianqi that has been working as Shu's apprentice in her efforts to overcome the originium effect on crops. Taking a mentorship role over Zhuo when he arrives in Dahong, Wang King is a strict teacher. He takes his role in the farmland of Dahong extremely seriously, coming off as rather abrasive from time to time. Despite that, he is a very caring individual, being more than willing to sacrifice his own life to save Zhuole's from the demons, Grainbirds. Sows is a rather comic release valve in this event. Unlike those around her, she's pretty laid back, contrasting her best friend Wang King's more stick-in-the-mud personality. Grainbuds looks after the animals of Dahong and is an extremely kind person, being one of the only inhabitants of Dahong, the other being Shu, who would approach the lumberjack willingly. Admittedly, this is a bit foolish due to him being corrupted by the demons, but she recognizes instinctively that he is not a dangerous person. She would also be the one who reveals the demonic corruption seeping into Dahong to the old Tianqi, who is able to begin attempts to weed it out. Although more due to running into someone knowledgeable rather than her own initiative, this did give the people of Dahong a little bit of warning before Ji would make his move. Speaking of her, the old Tianqi, one of the Ageless, Terra's mysterious immortals. This one has defended Yan for around 1,000 years, having manned the defensive walls holding back the demons for over 370 years. She mostly spends the event lighting around until the demonic corruption spreads its way into Da Hong. Only then does she take some action, protecting those around her and ensuring the destruction of the corrupted brain. Additionally, she comes to put a stop to Wang in Ji's attack at the end of the event. I would say she was a decisive component in convincing them to leave Da Hong, but she was a little late and it seemed like Wang didn't have much intentions of harming his siblings. So I hope they develop her further in the future because she did kind of feel a bit underwhelming, especially after having been built up in Invitation to Wine. Neon and Dusk have a fairly small role in the event. They don't do much. Mostly Dusk lasers around an unpainted world, while Neon works on the 12 pagodas and 5 cities project. This doesn't give Neon a lot of free time, and Dusk's just chilling. The two come to the rescue of the people of Da Hong though when the flood hits, Neon repairing the dam while Dusk whisks civilians away. So they obviously do go out of their way to help mortals when they are in danger, but we knew this already. When Ji finally makes his move, the pair are trapped within the fake heart of Sui, but it's only a temporary arrangement. However, we do get some nice character moments while they are imprisoned within the herd, but it's nothing major and it's more of just re-establishing who they are for this event, which doesn't do much to push their character forward going into future Sui sibling storyline. So I'm hoping that they put some more effort into developing these existing Sui siblings going into the future. Ji, having weaponized the power of capitalism, is the merchant of the Sui siblings, and that profession has taken him all over Yan. Ji is a simple man living by a simple creed. All under heaven live for profit, all die for profit. In all things, this creed guides his actions and even leads him to join Wang on his quest to supplant Sui. Ji grew up in Da Hong, so this event serves as a homecoming for him, while also allowing him to complete his masterpiece, a robe depicting the very fate of Yan. Very fitting that the place that he would value the most, his hometown, his homeland, would be the last piece needed to finish this masterpiece. Despite taking on the role of antagonist during this event, he is not a very malicious character. For the most part, he avoids hurting or even killing those who oppose him. When trapped by his ruler in Dust's painted world, instead of killing him after getting the upper hand, he simply leaves. Of course, he's no pacifist, but he's certainly no cruel god striking down the little mortals who get in his way. In fact, he seems to be living with the last wish of the merchant who trained him, searching for a great windfall that can profit all under heaven. And no doubt, he believes his work with Wang shall achieve this, as it falls in line with Wang's stated goals. Touching on the main character of the event, the rice woman herself, Shu. Shu is a woman who has suffered for the last 1,000 years, breaking off pieces of herself to defend the land of Da Hong from demonic corruption. Despite this, she is extremely limited in what she can do, well aware that once she leaves the mortal world, all of her achievements leave with her. As such, she allows those whom she trains to cultivate the crops that would fulfill Shennong's dream, and all her efforts bear fruit in the end thanks to the work of Wan King. Despite being an immortal fragment of a god, she is probably the only Sui sibling who has truly felt the pain of aging due to the continuous corruption eroding her mind and self while she defended Da Hong. Despite all that, she is one of the friendliest of the Sui siblings, having spent her entire life walking alongside humans in the fields that feed Yan. Shu actually dies during this event. Her very presence is removed from the world, much like how the other Sui sibling Ji left the world. But despite this, the Jesus Dragon returned from the heavens. Having a fundamental understanding of herself, she overcame the great consciousness of Sui and returned to the mortal world to aid her sisters. And due to her excessive care and patience, allowing others to carry out her dream for her, despite all of those in Da Hong losing memories of the woman who cared for the land and its people, the farmland of Da Hong survived her passing. She has engraved her legacy on the very land of terror, and even the oblivion of death could not take it from the world. Shu is a textbook tale of perseverance. Perseverance against nature, perseverance against disaster, perseverance against fate. And unfortunately for her, that perseverance did not lead her to the top spot on my favorite Sui siblings, but she tried her best. Finishing out with a bang, or a Wang in this case, Wang is so far the ultimate antagonist of the Sui storyline. Sui might overtake him eventually, but for the moment, this is our big bad, and he finally makes a proper appearance. I mean, his face still is invisible, but we got a design. I strongly doubt he'll ever be playable, but so far he seems to be a fascinating character. Despite being described as evil, he seems very caring for his siblings, only really hating the concept of Yan itself and not necessarily the mortals who inhabit it. Only time will tell how far he'll push Yan in his journey to resurrect the sleeping god Sui. Wang intends to return to the physical body of Sui and claim its powers for himself, and intends to use that power to benefit all the people of Terra. He even intends to allow his siblings to fully separate from the influence that is Sui and to finally live fully independent lives. Additionally, at the core of his plan, he wishes to revive the lost fragment of Sui. So, at the very least, his goal is motivated by the loss that was caused by the Yanese government, although he clearly holds a deeper resentment for Yan regardless. According to Shu, this task will most likely kill him, but he intends to use the power of his siblings to shift the odds slightly into his favor. And knowing that this series of events will eventually have to come to an end, we will eventually get to see that tale. But that'll be next year or the year after that. Hero People Sows is overall a very enjoyable event, and limiting its cast of characters only to those around Da Hong was definitely a good decision, especially with all the time the event spent building up the world around farming at the very start. Very interesting stuff to me as someone who loves learning about the little details like that, but maybe it could come off as a bit annoying if you just want to get to the dragon gods. Admittedly, if you didn't get that world building at the start, you wouldn't really have the same attachment to Dahong, as for the most part, we spend all our time in the event hanging out in the fields of grain. But that is just a personal bit of rambling. I want to know your thoughts on the event. Good, bad, mediocre. Personally, I would say it was a very solid event. Not quite as good as Vonal Wins, but it has slotted into the second place fairly easily on my rankings. Although, with a bit more time and a bit more hindsight on it, maybe it will surpass Vonal Wins. But that may just depend on how she was developed going forward. Y'all be good people, and I will see you in the next one.